Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ubuntu Touch Q&A, the UBports Foundation's show discussing the development of Ubuntu Touch and our community's questions. This is episode 102, streamed live on June 19th, 2021. Happy Juneteenth, everyone. My name is Dalton, and joining me this week is Alfred.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Alfred. Thanks for joining me again.
Of course, as always. Enjoying it.
I am too. Hey, if you like what we're talking about here, this whole Ubuntu Touch thing, and you want to see if your device is supported, why don't you head over to devices.ubuntu-touch.io. If your device isn't on the list there, well, unfortunately, it's going to need a custom image created for it. You can head over to the porting documentation at docs.ubports.com/porting to learn more. Also, there's a brand new theme there that is just perfect. Maybe I shouldn't use that hand gesture. It's bad in some places. I apologize if that's offensive in your culture. Moving on. We have a great roundup of news and questions to get to today. So, why don't we just do it, right?
Sure.
So there's a few, there's already been a few questions in live chat. Where's my focal image? Because last time when we were talking about updates to Ubuntu Touch based on Ubuntu 20.04, I said it was possible we could have first graphically booting images out. I'm not talking about that this time, so obviously it hasn't happened. We've got, there's still a lot of work to be done on all of this focal stuff. And the first images that we release, some people had very selective hearing last time, it seems. The first images that come out won't work very well. They might run apps and stuff, and there might be some indicators running, but not all of them. So, yeah, we're not quite there yet, but we hope to have images out as soon as we can, and we're working hard on this stuff, including, in the past 2 weeks, we've got the network indicator building and running on Ubuntu Touch based on Ubuntu 20.04. And Rajadan was showing this off in our development sync. The indicator was actually running on his Xperia X. It looks pretty nice. He's also been experimenting on running all Ubuntu Touch apps using Wayland instead of Mir Client, which, ideally, if everything goes well, you won't notice at all. That's the hard thing with this update, is Ubuntu Touch based on 20.04 is going to come as another update. You'll get sent straight into this. Your device will just switch channels. You won't see a thing. If you notice anything wrong, then we haven't done our job completely correctly. If we do our job right, you won't notice any changes in this release.
Right.
That's very difficult to come to grips with. But it's very exciting to me, so I hope it's exciting to you as well, even if you won't see any changes. We've got Media Scanner 2 now building on Focal and U1DB-Qt. Media Scanner is a thing that looks through all of your media and presents it in the gallery and video player apps and stuff. U1DB is a way to store settings in a database that used to be able to sync with Ubuntu 1. Rest in peace, Ubuntu 1. Ubuntu App Launch is now in. It has click support, but not Libertine support, which means that Lomiri is able to launch apps, but not from Libertine. So that's cool, because before it only had legacy support, I believe, and now it has support for clicks. Oh, and Repower D, that thing that handles like turning your screen off and stuff, is building on Focal as well.
Oh, yeah.
Martine says it's time for Ubuntu 2. I think the original is fine, but that is fair. If Ubuntu 1 is so great, where is Ubuntu 2?
But there can be only one.
Oh, true.
Hard question.
Why don't we talk a little bit about updates to Xennial as well? So things that you're going to see in Ubuntu Touch OT 18 coming to your phone soon, DM. There were a few regressions that were in the RC channel, the Release Candidate channel. from OTA 17, including Media Hub not looping its audio correctly when only one track was being played. Podbird lost the ability to resume its playback after it closed, but that's fixed now as well. And we fixed audio switching from headphones and back to not headphones on Android 9 devices when you make a call. But unfortunately, that re-broke it on some Android 7 devices. Florian, if you're watching, I know you're upset. I'm sorry, but I didn't know how to fix it correctly. So at the very least, we don't break anything new with OTA 18. There was a fix for Android 7 devices, including the Xperia X, I hope, with the installation animation looking weird and not having random blinking, which was an important feature that was missing. So that's fixed now, but you won't see it when you download OTA 18 because it'll run the old updater to update itself to the new updater. So if you're unstable, you won't see this until OTA 19, but it's there, and you can feel good about it being there. Oh, and just a small fix. Lomiri got faster to start up, takes up 25% as much RAM, and runs faster on basically every device in every situation. Just a small fix, you know. I believe the number was 60 megabytes of RAM is saved on the BQE 4.5 if you're using the default wallpaper. So that's pretty significant on that 1 gig of RAM device. And I'd like to correct myself from last time. Libertine, we talked about Libertine having new icons. I didn't know what that meant. I looked back at it. Libertine now has a new icon in system settings, which is the same color as all the others and has a higher definition, so it looks better. And that's all thanks to Adam Shree. This was his first ever PR on GitHub. So thank you for choosing the Ubuntu Touch project. Congratulations, and I hope we see many more. But if not, I hope you go on to help some other project in huge ways. So thank you. That's updating Xennial.
It's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. It feels really it can feel overwhelming at times, but I've been managing to keep on top of things. Oh, speaking of too many things going on, I've started mentoring someone as if I didn't have enough things to do already. So last month, Capsia, who you may know as the person who completely rewrote devices.ubuntu-touch.io to look better and have a better theme and is maintainable. Yeah, that person said, hey, I'm looking for a volunteer mentorship and work experience opportunity. Would you be willing to help me with this? And I said, boy, that sounds pretty hard. Yes. So fetch all. I should have done this before the show, but I forgot. I apologize. So let me. We started this week, and in that time, the original goal of this mentoring was to redesign the greeter view, the thing that comes up when your Ubuntu Touch device is locked, redesigning this to make it look better, more modern, and more like a design which was created by the community and is generally agreed on as, yeah, that looks better than the old one. Check out. I apologize. I should have done this a little earlier. We got to check out some stuff here. That was the original intent. But we've done a few other things in the meantime. So first, he completed his work on our new documentation theme, which I mentioned at the top of the show, but now I'll really talk about. He redesigned the documentation so that it's a little easier to navigate. Navigation for the current page appears on the right, whereas the whole table of contents appears on the left with the entire documentation, which has become pretty standard in online documentation. It's got a dark theme, and if you're in the dark mode, Yumi goes to sleep, and it's really cute. And anyone who doesn't like that can fight me. Yes, I have it. I've done it. And also, while we're talking about the docs, can we just thank Peter for maintaining the documentation for all this time? He's been working on reviewing PRs, looking at contributions for a long time, and the documentation is awesome because of him. So, Peter, you're talking out here, or you're listening out there. Thank you. Captcha has also made some new changes to the devices page as we've discovered some new things, including it turns out that volume control in calls is a completely separate feature from volume control outside of calls. And people have kind of called us on that bluff because, for example, on the Pixel 3a, not to pick on Alfred or anything, you can't change the volume in phone calls, but you can change the volume everywhere else. So he separated those two features, so now they can be listed as separate things on the devices page. And you have a little bit better idea of what you're getting into when you install this whole thing. He's added merge request templates that make it even easier to contribute to the devices page. And we've added the ability to mark a port as unmaintained. Now, the next thing that we did was we were the first day that we started mentoring. I had this whole idea that we were going to get him set up with a virtual machine with X forwarding so that he could run Lomiri and its tests and see the results of them on just his regular computer screen. And we went through this whole thing. It took about 3 hours to get this all set up. And then it didn't work, complaining about it NVIDIA GL.so. And I went, oh no, I have only done this on Intel and AMD machines. Turns out, X forwarding is nearly impossible on an NVIDIA system, unless the host and the guest are running the same operating system and can have the same NVIDIA driver. He's developing on Ubuntu 20.04. We have to run Lomiri on 16.04. They don't have the same NVIDIA driver. So, we thought, okay, what do we do next? And I kind of asked around in the UT app dev room where Johnny said, hey, Clickable can do that. And we worked together. Let's be honest, Johnny did almost all of the work to create a clickable.json that's able to build Lomiri in the environment it expects in Ubuntu Touch and allows you to run it and its tests right from your development machine.
That's so awesome.
No need for any more crazy X forwarding or setting up your containers. It's just right here. So let's see if a live demo is going to work here. Share screen, pick window, QML scene. Yes, that one. Boom. Haha. So I think I've showed the Lomiri tests before. They're pretty cool. You can try out Lomiri. This is also running much better than the X forwarding version did. Like, just absolutely great. I don't know if you can actually see that on with the streaming, though. But anyway, if we set this to desktop size and add a few more users to the interface, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So this is looking spiffy. Just absolutely great. And you can see that it's able to, switch between users. There is a slight problem that I am only going one mouse click for every one of these, but that's a separate problem. It's just looking real good.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And if we switch back into phone size, whoopsies, single passphrase. I mean, excuse me, greeter, I was using that. There's a syntax error in the greeter. Oopsies. So, yes, this is... I love it. There. Dang it. There's a syntax error in the greeter. It's causing it to leave. All right. We'll check on that next week. But, yes. I really appreciate everything that we've been able to do with this. I really like it. So that's kind of what we've been working on this week. There were several bugs that we actually had to fix in the intervening time to make the old greeter work correctly so that the new one could be designed. But that's just development. It's yak shaving, right? Have you finished that greeter redesign yet? Oh yeah, just as soon as I finish shaving this yak. And shaving the yak is somehow related to what you were already doing in some obscene way. Yes, I really like that. So yeah, that was running under clickable. We learned how to do unit tests in Lomiri, making the interface drive itself so that we know that things are fixed. We did a little bit of test-driven development where we decided that there was a bug. So we wrote a test that would do the correct thing. The test failed. We made the test pass. Funny story about that. The exact issue was you saw me scrolling around on the greeter a moment earlier. We were working on fixing that because before you would scroll on the greeter and it would stay at the top, which isn't what we wanted. And we were looking through documentation like, okay, what the heck? This is a flickable. It's a list view. How do we figure out what index it's on? While I was searching through the documentation and like talking to myself, Captcha starts typing one line of code. On moving changed, select current item. I thought he was just doing like a console.log or something. I wasn't watching. And all of a sudden he says, oh, I fixed it. It's like, what? Yep, it was one line. He got it. First try. No problem. So that was funny. We laughed for about 5 minutes because like, what? No way. Loved it. So yes. So thank you for that opportunity, Captcha. It's a lot of it. I'm glad we were able to do this for you. I hope we can show off more in the next episode. Oh yeah. There's also one more thing before we get out of this new section. Reddit.com/r/UBports is alive again. So that was a surprise. A community member who goes by the username Carbonated Bread, which every time I read that, Carbonated Bread is now the owner of the subreddit. It's still an unofficial subreddit, as I guess the best ones are. But geez, that username. So thanks, Carbonated Bread. Really appreciate it. So yeah, if you want to chat with people about Ubuntu Touch on Reddit instead of, the other places, that's cool. You can head over to /r/UBports. Alfred, did you answer Ari's porting survey?
I have not. I have been working on. I've talked to him privately about things, though.
All right. Well, last time we talked about how you can help Ubuntu Touch, and we talked about Ari's porting survey, and none of you went to answer it. None of you. Like, come on. Do I have to sit here and cry? Like, come on. It's just a survey. We know you're out there, porters. You can do this. We'll leave a link to it in the video description again, just in case you forgot, but we would really appreciate it. But we also appreciate everyone who helped us test the online accounts and PinePhone PRs. They're a little late for OTA 18 now, but we'll be sure to get them into OTA 19. What's up, Alfred?
I was just reading Amy's message.
You absolute failure. Please don't cry. 0 to 100 real quick.
Exactly.
We do have, last time I mentioned testing changes to MMS in Ubuntu Touch. More testing on this stuff means we'll find more bugs before we unleash it on everyone. So I'd really appreciate your help there. It's about 5 PRs, so it's not the easiest thing to install. You need to be on the newest Devil, and then you run 5 UBports QA commands to get it installed. Which, it's a little bit of work, but I mean, if you like MMS, we had some people this week who asked us about MMS features, or people who comment on these that say, MMS is really important. Well, if you think it's so important, help us test this out and see what's going on. I'll leave a link to that in the video description as well. One more thing. If you're technically, or, if you're inclined to just write stuff, we have an FAQ on our website that needs to die. It was written in 2017, I think. So it's got questions in it like, why are you moving Ubuntu Touch to Ubuntu 1604? So, yeah, if you could check, if you think, hey, I could rewrite some of that stuff, see what's, relevant, what's not, I could rewrite that stuff as restructured text contributed to docs.ubports.com. That'd be really great, because then we can get rid of that old thing. It'll be more maintainable, and we won't leave it another 4 years again. So, yeah, I'd appreciate if anyone is interested taking a look at that. Alfred, do you want to do this thing?
Of course I do.
Okay. Say the line. Say the line.
No, you.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'd like to give a big thank you to everyone who's making the Ubuntu Touch project and the UBports Foundation and this show possible, including our platinum level sponsors, including Smooze, Vala, and Pine64. You can find them and a whole bunch more sponsors over at ubports.com/sponsors. I'd also like to thank our community sponsors, who, in no particular order of being able to pronounce their name, Travis Mackmer, Amolith, Rasknarius, Zinsfell, Dan Trevino, Daniel Francek, Robin Hood, Laszlo Tomas, Ian Locke, Max Fielder, A. Thiel, Casey Lambie, George Toma, Renat Mirkalev, Will Atwood, and Scott Marley. All your names are scrolling right by at the bottom of the screen as well. Thank you. If you'd like to join them and have me mispronounce your name as well, you can head over to ubports.com/donate. And we've got a lot of ways that you can join them there. We've got Patreon, LibrePay, direct PayPal transactions, and IBAN transactions if you're anywhere that can accept those. The UBports Foundation is a nonprofit organization organized in Germany, so it is possible that your donation would be tax deductible. We would really appreciate if you helped. Okay. Are you ready for this, Alfred? We're going to take some questions. Have you ever taken questions before?
Me, personally?
Yeah.
I've asked questions in my life, yes.
Okay, good. So then you know how these people feel. These people who went on our forum over at forums.ubports.com and found the link to this Q&A in the news section so that they could ask questions on the forum. You know how they feel.
Of course.
So you can ask the first question.
The first question is from Provoke, and it says, is there any progress on enabling in-browser GPU acceleration for those devices that support it?
Oh, I felt that.
Provoke, let me know if I brought over the emotions correctly.
So, GPU acceleration for the devices that support it. I believe we talked about this last time. Nikita's really on my case about this. So, yeah, I know it's there. But it's always the question of, okay, where's the time? We're kind of working on this whole 2004 thing right now. And last time we tried it, there were bugs on some devices when we enabled GPU acceleration for the browser on all devices. Idea was, okay, why don't we make it only on some devices? And we haven't really got the way to do that yet. But if we could get the list of devices that it works on together, I forget what the PR is that enables it. But there's a few steps. I know what they are. I don't think there are PRs currently filed to make them happen. And right now, I'm just getting ready to close the OTA 18 cycle. So it'll be a couple of weeks before anything on that moves. And we're just getting ready to close the OTA 18 cycle because did you know that it's been almost 6 weeks since OTA 17 was released?
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Time flies. What was this other question?
Is backporting to Qt 5.15 the next project once 2004 is reached?
Oh, okay, yeah. Geez. It's really hard to say right now. I mean, all of our time is, if I'm not maintaining 1604 or doing project management for 2004, I'm sleeping. So it's kind of up in the air right now. You know, we've talked on this show before about how we don't like to plan much more than 6 months out because volunteer contributions change and rotate on about that cycle. So, you know, if we have a volunteer who's really excited to do something today, you know, in 6 months, we can get that thing done probably. After that, they might choose to, they might lose steam, life changes. I mean, that's 2 whole seasons. You know, people go back to school, people leave school, people get a new job. It's just a lot of stuff to plan for. So that's a long-winded way to say, I don't know yet. Let's get this 2004 thing done first. We'd really appreciate your help with it, but let's get that done first.
Okay, next question is from Ubuntu 2. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, EFF, has a web page to test how trackers view your browser. Apparently, the Morph browser does not fare well in this test. Our tests indicate, quote, that you are not protected against tracking on the web. Blocking tracking ads? No. Blocking invisible trackers? No. I did the test with OTA 17 and UAdblock installed. Any comments? Welcome.
I don't think that you really got the tone of that any comment welcome quite right. I don't know why. I read it like an investigative journalist, like grilling someone, like, any comment? I'm sorry if that wasn't your intention. It's just how I read it. Yeah. The Morph browser is based on Chromium, and we don't have a lot of content blocking lists or anything. It's a good browser, but it's a little bare bones, I must admit. If this is something that you're interested in seeing in Morph Browser, maybe see if there are other browsers that have done this with Qt Web Engine, and see if we can, steal their code, to put it nicely, so that we can make it work on Morph Browser as well. However, Total Sonic did answer, making this a bit more of a support question that I don't always like to take in these. That's an indication that UAdblock is not enabled correctly. Try disabling and re-enabling UAdblock. It's worked for me to fix a similar problem in the past. Martine says, can't you steal it from Qt Browser? I don't know if Qt Browser, like the example one, has content blocking. I think Falcon does, though. But, like I said, if I'm not working on 1604 or 2004, I'm sleeping or eating. So, help. TR Wittick has a question. Did you know that on the Pixel 3a, you can use your fingerprint sensor to scroll in the web browser? It's only the 3a XL, to be fair.
Yeah, right. So the issue is that for some reason, and I've decided to investigate afterwards, after the Q&A, into this thing. The issue seems to be that the service currently taking a quote-unquote grab on the fingerprint sensor, on the capabilities of using it as an emulated keyboard, which basically causes it to scroll. It turns out that for some reason, in some circumstances, it does not start the service that is supposed to take that grab. So my idea would be basically the idea of any sane person out there would be to take it out of the kernel and make the kernel not issue those events anymore. But it would for a quick fix, it would still be interesting to find out why that is happening in the first place. I see Tony Wittick already commenting, my 3A is not an XL. That is odd. because I've been daily driving this thing for about half a year now, and I have not had this issue at all.
Oh.
This is odd. Okay, well, I will certainly take a look into it.
Humbled live on stream.
But ripping it out of the kernel should be the first thing that should fix it anyway. So, yeah. But I can't tell you for sure how long that's going to take. I just have to take a look at the kernel source first.
Martine says a bunch of the Pixel phones can scroll using the fingerprint sensor. That is true, because in Android you can do gestures with the fingerprint sensor, and all it does is just send up, down, left, and right on the keyboard.
Yeah, I mean, it would. On the
smart.
other hand, it would be interesting if someone implemented a way to integrate that with the shell and make it do some fancy events, like scrolling down to, like you said, like taking
Opening
out
the indicators and switching
Right.
indicators. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
I would use all of that, except for the fact that my phone doesn't work in the US, Alfred. Yeah, that's really cool. Ronnie says, I don't think it's keyboard events on Android. I think it is. Swipe events. It looks like swipe events, but right now it's just sending a keyboard up, down, left, and right. I think it just sends keyboard up, down, left, right on FDev.
Yeah.
Alfred, someone else is calling you out.
Okay. I'm going to take the heat tonight, huh?
Messyisto says, there was a kind of announcement last time that there would be certain devices which could replace the Nexus 5 and the OnePlus One as flagships. Which devices do you have in mind? I'm asking because I want to buy a new one.
That's a tough question. I mean, as you've heard already, the Pixel 3a, for example, has issues on US carriers, and we're still looking for some way to fix that. It's not an easy task, and there are certain assumptions in the software stack that might seem to not work properly on US carriers. So until then, devices like, for example, the Pixel 3a might be, I would say, Europe-only recommendations from me personally.
Yeah, it is different depending on the carrier. Like, I have one carrier where everything works perfect, and another where it doesn't. And both of them are using the AT&T network. The problem is that I use the one where things don't work for my main phone.
There is also the question about longevity of the phone and making use of it for a longer time, because there are some ports that might not receive voice over LTE support ever, and there are certain devices that have the potential of receiving it. So I would say making a recommendation is very hard with this plethora of devices that we support. I mean, it's a small subset of all the phones sold, but it's still a lot of devices and a lot of porters working on those things. So, I mean, I would personally say the Pixel 3a is not something that I would recommend, but the Xperia X, for example, might be a good option for those that do not want to spend a lot of money and might want to have an Ubuntu Touch phone that pretty much works as a daily driver. It's not perfect, and I'm not saying that's perfect either, but it's better in some cases than the ones that we support as flagships.
Mm-hmm. And it's important to note, we just can't blanket recommend it for the US, because, I mean, there are people in chat who are now saying, hey, my Mint Mobile works just fine. This network works fine. That's great. But AT&T proper, Red Pocket Mobile, basically untested on T-Mobile and Sprint, Verizon is an absolute no. Hard to recommend. Because it depends so much on carrier. Hard to blanket recommend, but in certain cases, it works great. Actually, it works actually great. So we're just trying to hedge more than anything, because we don't want someone to go out and buy a Pixel 3a, even if they are like dirt cheap right now, and then say, hey, you said this is going to work perfectly. What's the deal? You know, because we've had that before, and it's not very fun for either us or the person experiencing that. The US is hard to recommend. True. Yeah. So Matthias had another question this week, and he said, I apologize, my name is easy to say.
Matthias asks, can you say some words about the aim of Ubuntu Touch? Shall it replace my Android phone and be or become a daily driver? I asked because I read sometimes in the forum once saying, oh, Ubuntu Touch is not working perfect now, I'll switch back to Android. And getting answers like, oh, well, if Android is working well for you, then you're wrong on Ubuntu Touch. When I tell my friends and family about alternate systems, like Sailfish and Ubuntu Touch, the questions are about apps. Is WhatsApp working, for example? And in forums as well. I feel this is important. Are you planning to bring up standard apps as well? Can the standard apps be defined?
Boy, this is a big question. I feel like we answer permutations of this every so often, but it's still important to talk about every once in a while. Especially since I don't think I've told the story that I want to tell today before. So here's a little thing about me, right? I am stone cold practical. Just absolutely practical to a fault. So I wouldn't be using Ubuntu Touch if it wasn't the best option for my situation, right? And I am using Ubuntu Touch on the daily, on the phone that I carry everywhere. And I know that I'm different from a lot of other people, especially people who aren't technical, or a lot of people who are technical. I started using smartphones with the 2013 Motorola Moto X. And yes, that is the default wallpaper. Yes, that is a working device. Yes, I still love this stupid thing. People talk about I can't use Ubuntu Touch because it's buggy or stuff like that. Let me tell you. I got this device. It was running Android 4.2.2, I think. And Google at the time owned Motorola. So there were quite a few updates for this thing. Google owned Motorola, and this device was manufactured in the United States of America, in Texas. It was probably really hot there. It got updates from 4.2 through 5.1, right? But the thing is, it had some pretty cool features. I mean, this device had the feature where if you were in your car and driving down the road, it would automatically detect that you're in your car and driving down the road and switch into driving mode, where it read notifications off to me over my Bluetooth car kit, and I could say, okay, what's up? And it would read me all the notifications, answer things about the weather, and it did that offline. It didn't send all of those to a web service. Now, it was 2014, so it was a little buggy. Sometimes I would say, what's up? And it would go, what's up means, because it went to Google instead of the offline stuff. And in the Android 5 update for this thing, they added a feature where you could change your wake word, so you could do like computer, and it would respond to that with the Google Now and stuff like that. But they also added a pretty big bug, which has become colloquially known as the mobile data active bug. If you've been in the Android hacking community for a while, you probably have heard of this one. It was a problem in Android 5.1 and Android 5.0, where anytime the device was on and connected to a mobile network, it wouldn't go to sleep. And you would see in the battery statistics that it would say, mobile data active has taken 90% of your battery. Battery life was less than half of what it used to be when I updated this phone. And that was pretty hard to come to grips with. Eventually, what I ended up doing was using the quick settings in Android to turn off mobile data anytime that I wasn't using it, because that would allow it to go to sleep and actually preserve my battery life. It was that experience that led me to be like, man, I can't have a phone like this. Like, I just got an update, and now this thing's completely unusable. I couldn't downgrade because there's downgrade prevention. I couldn't switch to a different operating system because this is the Verizon model that you can't bootloader unlock, even though there were lots of custom ROMs for this thing back in the day. And this was kind of when I got started in Android hacking, because it's like, okay, can I get the bootloader unlocked? Because this is awful. People were going on XDA and being like, hey, I got this ROM with a fixed mobile data active bug. You want to try it? I was like, And that kind of set the scene for my second phone purchase, the Nexus 5X, in around 2016. Now, this thing had an unlockable bootloader. I could unlock it and use whatever I want, but for a while, I just kind of used the Google apps, the full Google suite. And I mean, I continued using the Nexus 5X with Google apps for a long time. At the time, I was already interested in Linux on the desktop, so I wanted to pop things off and try different things out. You know, I went to Paranoid Android for a while and installed a theme that matched my case because it looked cool. Man, I ran Paranoid Android for like 2 years. Wow. With and then without the Google apps, right? Because eventually, the battery life of the Nexus 5X was never good. But as I continued to use it, it got worse. And there was this issue where if you ran the Nexus 5X too hard for too long, it would self-destruct. This one luckily hasn't done that yet. I may have one of like 1,000 Nexus 5Xs that are still fully alive in the world that haven't been recycled yet. And that decreasing battery life, along with a little experiment I did where someone went to, I think it was one of my college instructors at the time, showed me Google activity log. And I went on that, and I went all the way back to 2014 when I got the Nexus, the Moto X, and played back voice recordings of myself from that time. I thought, oh, this is creepy. I don't want someone to have this about me. Because it also had things like a few seconds of what I was saying before I said, okay, Google. And some of that was, oh, sorry, cancel. Some of that wasn't the greatest because, you know, I was a stupid kid at the time. Boy, I didn't like that. So I thought, I'm going to get rid of these Google apps. I started hearing about things like Ubuntu Touch because it was going before, it was going way before I had even had a smartphone. But I started hearing about it. It sounded interesting just because I wanted to tinker with stuff, not because it's like, oh, I want to use this hipster platform. Because at the time it was still on sale, so I guess it could be considered that. It's like, I got this Nexus 5X. At the time, you know, again, stone cold practical. At the time, all of my friends had already moved away to college, so I was kind of looking for a little social connection again. And the UBports community had that. So I joined that. And until like 2018, I still ran Lineage OS on my Nexus 5X because I couldn't figure out how to port the darn thing. And there were no other devices that worked on US networks. Well, that worked on Verizon. I switched away from Verizon to be on Ubuntu Touch. This is the long and short of it eventually. But it all comes down to, I mean, I tried Snapchat in the day, which is one of those things that we don't have, and people come and say, hey, does Snapchat work? No? Well, then I can't use Ubuntu Touch. But the thing is, if you need those kinds of things, then use them. Like, I understand the want to tinker, and the thing is, if you want to tinker, phones that run Ubuntu Touch are pretty cheap, so you can just get one that you don't have to use as your daily driver. But if you see that it does meet the needs that you have for a daily driver, as it did for me eventually, you can use it. So when you see people saying, well, if Android's working for you, then why are you using Ubuntu Touch? Is take it at face value. Like, why would you switch from an iPhone to a Galaxy S20 if you like the iPhone? If the things that are making you leave Android are bad enough, then, well, let's try and work together to make Ubuntu Touch work better for you. But if you really want to be using Android, then just do that. Do the practical option. You know, sounds weird for someone to be saying on, you know, the Ubuntu Touch Q&A, but like I said, stone cold practical.
It is what it is.
And I feel like that's an attitude that a lot of the community has. Is we have idealists, we have practical people, and we're working together generally. And where we disagree are where some of the most interesting conversations are. Just absolutely. So that's where you see the two different answers there. And as for what apps you need, I don't think we can define the standard apps, because for people in the US, it's MMS, because iPhone users send MMSs when they're using iMessage, and you aren't using iMessage. So MMS is important for the US, and Snapchat is important for the US for everyone under 30.
Right.
Or now Instagram is coming up as well. I should not count out Instagram or TikTok, but for the age range where I am, it's Snapchat.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same here in Austria, for example, where there are people, and I mean, I've been talking to people. Why would you use Ubuntu Touch over anything else when everything else is already there? And I mean, I basically tell them, yeah, if you need Snapchat for whatever reason, then there is no chance on making that work right now, at least, because you are not hooked on an OS. You're hooked on some certain applications that you're using. And the OS itself should not matter and does not matter in most cases, because you're basically caring about the applications that you're running on it. The thing is, though, there are some people, and as Dalton said, for example, there are more people who are more like they're following a certain philosophy. They're more idealist, and I count myself to that kind of group, because to compare it with cooking meals, I would like to eat something that I've cooked myself. I really like doing that. I really like using my own software, because there are certain limitations that I see in other people's software, and I would like to. That's the reason, for example, for me making IsoDrive or Ghost Cloud for Ubuntu Touch. It's not only that it was an application that was missing for other people. It was basically to make it work for myself. It sounds very egoistic, but I mean, it is. But on the other hand, like, there are certain things that I would like to have, and if other people are interested in using it too, then everybody benefits. And we have certain applications that you cannot get easily on Android, for example, like IsoDrive, which allows you to mount ISO files on your computer using your smartphone, not having to flash a USB stick anymore with an ISO file.
Or a custom kernel.
Right?
On Android.
Yeah. And I mean, those are things that it depends on what your use case is. If you're only interested in using your smartphone for Instagram and Snapchat, you might have a bad time with Ubuntu Touch, of course. But if you have certain different needs, then Ubuntu Touch is a very viable option for you, coming from the practical standpoint again. So there are different people and people wanting to solve different needs. And I already see Tony Wittig saying IsoDrive has saved me at work. So that's good to hear. I really like that.
Makes you feel good. That hits you right in the feels, huh?
Oh, yeah, it does. So again, there are certain things that we can offer that others cannot offer. Like, I mean, yeah, the whole freedom standpoint, there are certain things that you, assuming that you can make use of it as a developer, for example, make use of your freedoms on Ubuntu Touch. You can do that. You cannot with most other popular operating systems, especially not the iPhone, for example. I mean, you can install applications, you can write applications, but you have no access whatsoever to the OS that make that work better. On Ubuntu Touch, if you feel like something is missing, you can work on it yourself and make it work. And everybody benefits from it. So that's a certain dynamic that I like about Ubuntu Touch and other similar open source operating systems, or sort of open source operating systems. again, just scratching my own itch, I started porting with Sailfish OS back in the day, and I moved over to Ubuntu Touch, and it's like you can't have that on Android, for example. There might be custom ROMs, but there are certain limitations put by the developer, by the vendor of the operating system, and it's way easier to do on Ubuntu Touch for sure. Even though we might have certain disagreements about whether to, for example, mount the rootfs read-write or not, installing apps that way. There are certain disagreements for sure, but overall, there is. I can't say anything about bad about it because the community is working so well together, and it's just one aspect of why, for me personally, Ubuntu Touch is the better option compared to the alternatives. People always say, well, Ubuntu Touch is an alternative to Android. No, for me personally, at least, Android is an alternative to Ubuntu Touch. So there is a difference
with a lot of compromises, huh?
Well, I mean, I can use Twitter on my browser. I can use whatever I need. I have all the tools that I really miss on other operating systems. So it's a different use case for me than, for example, like people of age 30 and under who really would like to use Snapchat or Instagram and stuff like that. Not to put a restriction on age. There are other people using it too, but it all depends on what you need. And I need something that I can work with. Yeah. And Ubuntu Touch provides that.
It was funny. And I'll wrap this up after. But the other day was my brother's graduation party, and we had some people over, including one of my friends. And, we were sitting in the garage, and we wanted to pull up a YouTube video. So I took out my phone and went on youtube.com, and he's like, haha, you're funny mobile, huh? Your funny alternative operating system doesn't even have a YouTube app. And I sat back and I thought, I don't care.
Right.
But other people do. So, it's a difference of opinion. It's a difference of priorities, which is why I always am careful to say, well, if you need Android, I'm an evangelist, but I'm not stupid. If you need something that only runs on Android, use Android. And there's lots of ways to do it, like, have a second Android phone or whatever. But just, yeah. Cleaning up a few things from live chat. People are asking about WhatsApp. Yeah, everyone asks about WhatsApp. Don't worry.
Well, to be fair, the recent developments, I mean, we shouldn't, I don't take my word for it, but the recent developments of Andbox really look promising. I mean, WhatsApp and stuff like that, if you really need that, again, you're not hooked on an OS, you're hooked on an application, a specific one. But that specific one seems to be working quite nicely now, including calls from what I remember. So, yeah.
And if you just need text, WhatsWeb is an option if you have another Android phone sitting around.
Yeah.
So there are options. They're just a little bit of a compromise. It's like, how much are you willing to compromise to use this thing? How much are you willing to compromise to use Linux desktop? For me, it's a compromise to use Windows. For my brother, it was a huge compromise to use Linux because he couldn't play the games he wanted to play. So just take everything that we've said into account and think, what are your priorities and does it work for you?
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's what really matters. And if Ubuntu Touch meets your needs and you like it, we would love to hear about it. We'd love to hear about, where its deficiencies might be if it doesn't meet your needs. But ultimately, we'll tell you how it is based on how it is right now. So thank you all for listening. And hey, if you like what we were talking about today, well, maybe you'd like to install Ubuntu Touch on your phone. Maybe you've got a spare Nexus 5X sitting. Wait, not the 5X. A spare Nexus 6P sitting around, or a Nexus 5. Sorry, not the 5X. I can't look at this thing anymore. Ugh. Head over to devices.ubuntu-touch.io to see if your device is supported. Give it a try. See if your priorities align with ours, because if they do, you're gonna really love it. And if your device doesn't have a option made for it, well, it'll need a custom image. And you can head over to docs.ubports.com/porting to learn more. Geez, we've got a lot of social networks where you can find us throughout the week, including Facebook, Twitter, PixelFed, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Instagram, and if you want our news directly in your chat client, Telegram or Matrix. Links to all those are in the video description, as well as if you want to chat with us, maybe you think that what I just said was really spicy and you want to take me down a notch, well, you can find us on Telegram at UBports or Matrix and #UBports:/matrix.org. Or for longer form content, you really want to write me a letter about how wrong I am. I get it. Don't worry. You can head over to forums.ubports.com. Amy says, haha, someone trusted me with Twitter access. Yes, and we can take that away too. But yeah, thank you very much for checking it out. Geez, where can people find you throughout the week, Codemaster Fretters?
Oh, yeah. Basically, mostly on Twitter, at Freddle.me. That's FREDLDOTME, as always. Same username on Telegram. Please don't spam my inbox. No Bitcoin messages. Thank you. And GitHub, especially. You might see a few projects here and there that you might be interested in working on. For example, the applications for Ubuntu Touch, porting for Ubuntu Touch, the kernel for the Sony Xperia X and Pixel 3a. You can download those there and maybe even contribute a few things to the system. For the ports, not the system, for the ports.
Geez, I see a lot more questions in live chat. Hey, if we didn't answer your question, recommend checking us out on all those chats. Also in the video description. Thank you very much for watching this episode of the Ubuntu Touch Q&A. Thank you again for joining me, Alfred. It's a pleasure as always.
Oh, yeah.
And we will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to press the like button.